Kandarin is definitely a support region. There's not very many bosses, there's not a ton of endgame content in this region. And really you're just utilizing it to fix some problems that you might have, very similar to Fremenic, with your other region picks, right? It's finding those gear pieces that fill out and round out your gear and your load setups. It has a ton of different skilling and tasks, things that you can do to help escalate you faster into other relics and other regions as fast as possible. And that's really where this excels. This is a really early game region where you pick it as like your first region to help push you and snowball you into getting you those relics and those other regions unlocked. Now, like I said, there's not very many bosses. Really, there's only technically 2 bosses in this region, which is Kraken and Thermi. But I'm gonna throw in demonic gorillas here as well, because they're going to act like a boss in the sense of they're probably going to have a kill count task tied to them. They have a unique drop that will probably have tasks tied to it, very similar to how Kraken and Thermi will. Now, Kraken and Thermi are both Slayer monsters, which means you have to have a task for them in order to kill them. They're in a special isolated area, so you're going to have to hop tasks, or if we get lucky and get another Slayer relic that lets you choose your task, you can actually just hard camp these, which is really nice and convenient if you're going for their drops. Demonic gorillas, on the other hand, are really versatile. They'll probably be a 500 or 1000 KC task, and the Zenites they drop, you do technically quote-unquote need 4 of them. There'll probably be a task to equip all 4 different pieces of jewelry from the demonic gorillas. Between demonic gorillas and smoke devils, you get 2 massive upgrades for magic, which is the tormented bracelet, which is the Zenite drop for demonic gorillas, and then the occult necklace from Thermi. Together, you're getting almost a 15% damage increase single-handedly by that combination of items, regardless of what your mage weapon and such is. The other thing with mage that's really nice is you get Kraken, which gives you the Trident of the Seas, and that's one of very few powered staffs in the game, and having a powered staff to switch to is such a huge quality of life and just ease of doing that content. But the first power staff you used to be able to get was at 87 Slayer, which is the Trident of the Sea. But there's now a quest called the Path of Gloofy that you can now complete and camp a couple of warped creatures to get a warped scepter, which is a slightly weaker powered staff that doesn't have a Slayer requirement onto it. You do still have some other Zenite items. You have the Anguish, you have the Torture, you have the Ring of Suffering if you're camping Zulrah, right? In your other regions. So it does really support and give you those niche pieces that you might be missing from other regions. So that's kind of the gear that you're going to be looking at really obtaining in this region. But the mage gear definitely is so crucial that if you're going mage and you're not taking Kandarin, you're probably doing something wrong. I did mention there's a lot of different skilling methods that this region does offer. And the first thing we're going to touch on, like always, is your combats and Slayer. In this region, you get Monkey Madness 2 automatically completed. And having that automatically completed gives you access to the Monkey Madness 2 tunnels, which allows you to stack up and burst or barrage them with magic or chin them with range. And if you just choose this region, you don't have the desert. You really want to focus on chinning in that cave and chinning specifically on defense, which will give you just insanely fast 99s by catching the red chins that are also in this region. One thing I do recommend is if you happen to be taking my advice from the starter region video and rushing those hunter levels with like Puro, if you can jump immediately into red chins and beat the rush and stockpile all of the chins that you need to get 99 in range and defense immediately, day one, ignore the rest of the tasks, it is so worth it because those will be free and it will not be crowded. As soon as these get crowded, you're going to only have one box location. You're going to be fighting over the traps. You're going to be fighting over the chins with other players all league long. So keep in mind that if you're going to do this, this is something you want to really rush. And runecrafting also is really good in this region because you have ZMI. As soon as you craft, teleport to the bank and use that last recall that we've talked about many times to teleport immediately back without having to make that long run. This, in combination with Mauritania to get Dayalt Essence, is probably the best rune crafting experience that you can probably get in the game. There's not a ton that this region has to offer for construction. You don't really unlock any other really unique things that you can build because of this region. You don't have any other unique spots, so we're just going to leave that as a don't. Agility is a do. You get probably the second best agility training method in the game in the Arty Rooftop. Now it does have a level 90 requirement, but it does get a little bit outclassed by Mauritania and Sepulchre from an XP rate wise, but you do get those marks of grace, which is really, really, really nice. The other thing I'll mention with agility is because there's not a lot of end game content, there's not a lot of end game PVM. Last leagues, getting like the best monkey backpack from the monkey agility course was a master task. It takes a lot of time to do that. If they follow suit and that is a master task again, you will be doing a ton of agility in your downtime in between PVM to try to hit that task, because it is thousands of laps along that course, so keep that in mind. I'm going to do farming and herb lore together this time, and I'm going to mark them both as a do. And the reason for that is you actually get a couple of patches. You get the Arty patch and you get the Catherby patch, which allows you to really farm those herbs and those seeds that you get. You also get a couple of fruit tree patches, the Catherby one, the Tree Gnome one. You get normal trees and whatnot, and the Gnome Stronghold as well. So lots of farming that can be done in this region outside of just herbs. So very, very strong herb lore and farming region. Thieving as well is also very, very good. I mentioned this in my recap showing the Trickster relic. Because you get no fail if you choose that relic on some of the NPCs that you pickpocket, makes it to where your XP rates can literally be in the millions of XP per hour with even just like the base multiple, like right off the bat. Thieving is really, really good. Even if you don't choose that relic, you still also have like Arty Knights in this region, which are very, very strong to camp for your thieving training. There's nothing special about crafting here. You don't really want to do actually train crafting, even though you need crafting levels to craft those Zenites that we talked about earlier. You want to use another region to actually level your crafting to then use those Zenites to get you access to things. You have a nice cluster of trees, and this will probably, assuming that forestry ends up becoming a thing, you can kind of assume that Sears Village will become the hotspot for forestry activities again. If those end up not being the case and forestry is not something that you can easily do because you don't have Arctic pines, it may be worth just skipping out on all three of those. But I'm going to assume that they're going to be in the game. They're going to make exceptions for the new content they made. Mining and smithing don't really have anything. This league in Kandarin, they're just going to move on. Fishing, there's actually some good early fishing. Again, if you take this as the first region, doing something like Slug Menace and whatnot, getting those fishing contests, getting those early quests done to skyrocket your fishing up a little bit, so that way you can catch better fish in other regions is very, very good. You also get Barbarian Village, which allows you to do barb fishing, also very, very strong. Cooking wise, nothing special cooking. You probably don't cook in this region. And lastly, I really just want to talk about the quests and diaries of Kandarin, as that's really the last big piece of content that this region has to offer. Waterfall and Fight Arena will often be auto-completed depending on the regions you take. Kandarin does not auto-complete those, which means if you take Kandarin as your first region and you do Waterfall and Fight Arena immediately, you will get the XP from these. Once you get the next like XP multiplier that's off the base 4 or 5, whatever they choose to be, and that you get up to like an 8x XP multiplier and then do Waterfall and Fight Arena, you'll actually jump immediately to 62 attack and 51 strength from level 1 just by completing those, which is a massive boost to get you into using your dragon weaponry and stuff. I did mention the Path of Glue-Free. This gives you the Warped Scepter, which is a really, really good early game mage weapon for whether you're mage focused or you are using it as a tribrid setup for raids and just need some sort of mage gear. This is a great way of getting a powered mage staff. There's a lot of other quests that are pretty good for XP early on that are not auto-completed. Looking at things like fishing contest and whatnot that give just good early fishing XP, monk's friends, etc. Definitely do those early quests. There'll probably be tasks for them as well, just nice, easy, or medium tasks for each of these. That's just like an added bonus that as you're doing some task hunting, this gives you some really good foundational levels to really like skyrocket you into those next couple of regions that you take. Lastly, the diaries. All the diaries are kind of meh in League. The Arty diary is the one that everybody rushes in the main game because you get the teleports to the farming patch, which is still good here. A little bit less needed because you don't have to do farming quite as much. And then the teleport to the altar front, like the monastery from that cape, is also pretty good. With Last Recall, it's decent, but really more often than not, you're going to be wanting to teleport to a bank to restore your food, or teleporting to your house to restore your spec energy and whatnot off of a pool. You also have the Kandarin diary. The Kandarin diary doesn't really give you anything too much. You have the Seer's agility course, so you can like expedite your XP a little bit better by using that teleport as well, just like people do in the main game. But it's not like such a crucial thing to do. It's not the end of the world if you just skip it. So most of the diaries for the most part here are just kind of meh, and I probably wouldn't do them unless you have most of the requirements for them anyway, and they're just like quick, easy tasks to push you up to a next tier. I do want to just reiterate once again that it is an amazing support region that is really, really good early on, because it offers so much early game utility. Unlike Fremenic, our past support region, that was better later on to round out your gear, this region offers so much early game that picking it as your first region unlock to help support those other harder regions that you're going to be taking is a very, very good thing to do. Due to the amount of insane best in slot magic gear in this region, it feels almost required for Mage and pretty close for Melee, as Melee gets Piety as well. So if you're going either of those routes, this is something very heavily to consider, is taking Kandarin as that extra support region, as there's almost nothing better to do. Reminder to subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's episode.